Just a few things about this Wolf Athletics Trident Mesh that I'll say here while you're watching me stretch the mesh and string the pocket. The mesh has a decent amount of stretch to it. I would consider a mesh like, for example, Hero Mesh, Hero 3. I would consider that a mesh that stretches a lot with the weight of the ball. So having the ball in the pocket, the mesh looks a little different than without the ball in the pocket. By comparison, I would say any of the String King meshes are more, they keep their shape a little bit more, and the diamonds don't really respond too much to when the ball's in the pocket. All that is just to say that this mesh's diamonds don't stretch all that much, which I think is good. I think it helps with consistency. The diamonds, of course, the diamonds of any mesh are going to give with the weight of the ball because the ball is so dense. But this mesh keeps its structure pretty well while being very light. It's not very thick, and normally thicker, stiffer meshes keep their shape, but this one being, as I said, lighter, I wouldn't necessarily describe it as thin, but for a light mesh, it keeps its shape very well. I definitely prefer the semi-hard and harder or stiffer meshes, so I'm definitely biased in that regard. But nonetheless, this mesh is really light. Again, I would say that that's the best way to describe this mesh and probably the best characteristic. It doesn't feel thin, and I'm not exactly sure how to articulate that distinction between light and thin, but I would consider, like I said, the String King Type 4s to be very thin meshes, and I personally don't really care for those. I prefer something with just a little bit of thickness to it, and something that'll hold its shape when the ball is in it. So in that way, it is different from String King Type 4 meshes, which I said I would consider really thin. This is not that, but it's not thick. It's not like any of the meshes from years past. It's not like Type 2 or Type 3 or anything like that. It's not thick by any means. It just feels very light. Down the sides of the head for the pattern, it was pretty easy to stretch the diamonds down. I wanted to go with a mid-low, more of a shifty pocket. I do like higher pockets, but I'm tying this up in an optic, and I want to use the shape of the head as best I can to give the mesh the best chance of performing well. I didn't want to fight this head with putting a high pocket in with mesh I've never used before, and then just have it not really give the mesh a fair shake at a good review. This mesh strings pretty easily. I was just kind of messing around with it at first and seeing, like I said, how far it would stretch. Going with a couple special knots, and then I'm gonna pull the edges of the mesh to the outside, kind of like how I do with my face-off pockets. I just kind of like a wide channel. I strung this same piece of mesh before in the same head about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, and I ran with that pocket. I used it at a couple practices while coaching over the past couple weeks, and I liked it. I just wanted to change it up, and I wanted to give a thorough review of this mesh by providing a little bit of a voiceover while watching myself string it. One thing I like about mesh in which the diamonds don't really stretch all that much is that it's a little easier to predict how the pocket's gonna look closer to the end of stringing it. Of course, when you pound out a pocket, it's gonna deepen. You're gonna break some of the little fibers that are connecting the mesh pieces together, or the threads or whatever. I mean, I don't make mesh, so I don't necessarily know anything about it, but I know that pounding anything with, you know, a rounded blunt object is gonna stretch it out. So pounding the mesh, you're gonna stretch it out and you're gonna make it a little deeper. I've already pounded it when I strung the first pocket, so there's not too much pounding of this mesh that needs to be done between now and taking it to the field or to the wall. But yeah, so it already is kind of showing me where the channel's going to end and where the pocket's going to start, and where the sort of the ceiling of the pocket is going to be. By ceiling, I mean before the ball gets up into the channel part, which of course tightens and makes the ball a little bit uncomfortable and makes it want to come out. So pretty much something that impacts things like toe drags and wind-ups when shooting is how high the ceiling of your pocket is. So I like my pockets to shift up a little bit, even if it is a lower pocket, so that I can pull my hands back, or I can drop the stick below my waist or whatever when I'm just messing around, and the channel won't get so tight that the ball will get uncomfortable and just fall out. In a standard low pocket, that might happen if you don't have incredibly good hands. So like I said, I'm stringing the edges of this pocket to the edges of the mesh to the outside, kind of like I do with my face-up pockets. I don't really know why. I think it's a good way to widen the channel, and I also just didn't feel like stringing a regular sidewall pattern on top of the sidewall rail like normal. I wanted to do something a little bit different and see what this mesh can do. And this was a pretty good test for it. Of course, it passed the test pretty well. It's going to shift where I want it to shift. It's going to stay put where I want it to stay put, where I'm locking these diamonds. It'll just give me a bigger pocket that's more of a mid-low bag than a regular low. I just don't think I could really play with the regular low pocket. It's not what I learned with, so it's not really what I like. But yeah, as I stated before, I like that I can, the further I get down stringing even just one side of the sidewall pattern, I've already got a pretty good idea of what this pocket's going to look like, given the shape of the side rail and the spacing of the sidewall holes. I think this is the 10th 10 diamond row I'm using, including the top string. That's normally what I use, one 10 diamond row in the top string, or top string tie off, and then 9 of the 10 diamond mesh rows in the pocket itself. So the bottom string is going to go through this next 9 diamond row. When you pound out a pocket, that should be all the diamonds you need, unless you're stringing a big wide defensive head, or you know, if you're stringing a stick to the inside and it pulls the edges of the mesh toward the face a little bit, you might need to throw in an extra diamond to have enough depth. But I really think that if you use one 10 diamond row in or right after the top string, and then 9 of the 10 diamond rows in the pocket itself, you pretty much have 3 diamonds to pull down the channel, and then you can mess around with the other 6 to form the pocket. I think I actually locked the first 3 and then float lock, float lock, float lock. Something like that. So you'll see in the end when I'll write the pattern in the description below or something. So yeah, overall, great impression from this mesh. Thanks again for Wolf Athletics for sending it over. It was fun to string. It was good to kind of just let this mesh and head kind of string themselves and kind of feel out how they wanted to be strung together. I've strung 1,000 Optik U's and 1,000 different patterns of different types of mesh, and this was great to see how this head fits with this pocket style. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it shoots. I put in the shooter setup that are normally like a nylon and 2 straights for a lower pocket. So I'm hoping for a little bit of snap on the release. So yeah, I'll post a wall bow video sometime soon, and I'm sure it'll feel great on the wall. But yeah, if you have any questions or any comments, if you've also tried Trident Mesh or any of the other Wolf Athletics products, and you want to let me know in the comments how those have been for you, feel free to do that.